Welcome back, friends. Today we're stepping into the rugged Highlands, a place where nature's beauty hides secrets that can change lives in an instant. Imagine this. A lone hiker, drawn by curiosity, stumbles upon something unusual. A strange boulder, its markings unlike anything he's ever seen. What starts as a quiet exploration soon turns into a race against time, uncovering a danger that could have altered everything. Stay with me, because this story is about more than just rocks and landscapes. It's about how one person's small discovery can ripple through an entire community. Let's dive in. Local hiker and amateur geologist Dalton was exploring the rugged Highlands when he stumbled upon an unusually shaped boulder, intrigued by its peculiar form and markings. He took several photos and sent them to a geology expert friend for a quick analysis, expecting a simple explanation. Dalton continued his hike, unaware of the impending danger he had just uncovered. Minutes later, his phone rang with an urgency that made his heart skip a beat. The expert's voice was frantic, urging him to get away from the boulder immediately. Dalton's geology expert friend was screaming bloody murder over the phone. As soon as his geology expert friend explained why he was so upset, Dalton's eyes grew wide in shock. He almost dropped his phone as he sprinted away from the boulder. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" he yelled over the phone, not even listening to his friend as he kept on running. He only stopped when he was back in his car, out of breath. Dalton sat in his car. He quickly ended the conversation with his friend and called 911. But what is going on with the boulder? Why did Dalton have to get away from it? And will the FBI show up? But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The Highlands were about a 20-minute drive away from Dalton's home. On the weekends, he would usually be there hiking and exploring. He was always on his own, as he could sometimes spend hours in the same spot, and he didn't want anyone to hold him back. Normally he loved being alone, but this time he wished someone had been there. As he hiked to the top of the hill, he saw something big and round in the distance. Dalton couldn't keep his eyes off the strange round object, trying to figure out what it was. As he got closer, his mouth fell open as he realized the size of the object towering over him as he stood next to it. "What on earth is this thing?" he thought. He stared at the object for a little while, inspecting every inch of it. It was a true head-scratcher. Dalton eventually snapped a few pictures and sent them to one of his friends majoring in geology expertise, and continued his hike. You see, Dalton had the mind span of a goldfish and totally forgot about the object until he walked past it again on his way back to his car. Once again, he was intrigued by the object and checked his phone to see if he had gotten a response from his friend. As Dalton reached into his backpack, he felt his phone briefly vibrating. It stopped right as Dalton grabbed it, and when he checked his missed calls, his stomach dropped. His friend had called him 15 times. Dalton wasted no time and quickly called his friend back. And after only one ring, his friend picked up, screaming at Dalton to get away. "Get away from that thing, Rich, now, Fred," Dalton's friend yelled. Dalton asked why, but Fred began to rattle like a madman, so Dalton had no idea what he was saying. "What? What do you mean?" he stammered. Fred's words suddenly hit him like a truck, and Dalton began to sprint back to his car. Dalton's feet barely touched the ground as he dashed downhill, his voice hoarse from shouting warnings to anyone he passed. "Go back, it's not safe," he yelled, but his words were carried away by the wind, leaving no impact on the hikers, who glanced at him with amusement and continued on their path, oblivious to the urgency in his voice. His rapid descent drew puzzled looks from fellow hikers. They watched Dalton, his face etched with panic, racing past them. Each warning was met with indifference, as if he were a stranger speaking a foreign language. Gasping for air, Dalton threw himself into his car, slamming the door shut behind him. Remembering Fred was still on the line, Dalton picked up his phone again. "I'm safe now," he whispered, his voice a mixture of relief and lingering fear. "But I need to hang up. I have to call for help." There was a pause as Dalton braced himself for the next step, knowing the weight of what he was about to do. As news of Dalton's discovery and the averted danger spread, the community began to view him in a new light. He was celebrated as a local hero, someone whose keen observation and quick action had potentially saved many lives. Dalton's actions soon caught the attention of the media, and he found himself thrust into the spotlight. News reports highlighted his discovery, portraying him as an everyday citizen who made an extraordinary find. The attitude of the community was overwhelming. Dalton received letters, social media accolades, and public acknowledgments thanking him for his role in preventing a possible tragedy. He knew the next call he made could be one of the most important in his life. With determined resolve, he began dialing 911, ready to explain the danger he'd stumbled upon in the Highlands. With that, he steeled himself, pressed the call button, ready to alert the authorities. He could feel the weight of his discovery pressing down on him, urging him to make the operator understand the gravity of the situation. The operator's voice, laced with skepticism, pierced through Dalton's plea. "Sir, are you sure about this?" In the quiet moments, Dalton found himself reflecting on the whirlwind of events. He considered the chain of reactions his discovery had set off and the potential disaster that was avoided. Dalton's experience left a lasting impression not only on him, but on the community as a whole. It served as a powerful reminder of the importance of awareness and action in preventing disaster. His story became a testament to the impact one individual can have, encouraging others to remain vigilant and to act decisively when faced with potential threats, thus ensuring the safety of all. "We'll send someone to check it out," the operator finally conceded, but their tone suggested they were humoring him more than taking action. Dalton's heart sank as he realized only one officer would be dispatched. It felt like a token gesture, insufficient against the magnitude of what he'd found. Dalton ended the call and turned his gaze towards the path leading back to the Highlands. He sat there, watching, his concern growing with every passing minute. Dalton to a sliver of hope that the police would act swiftly, mitigating the danger before it could escalate. Each second that passed without change tightened the knot of worry in his stomach as he hoped against hope for a positive outcome. The distant sound of a siren pierced the heavy silence, flooding Dalton with a wave of relief. He flung open his car door and stepped out, his eyes scanning the horizon for the source of the sound. The moment he spotted the police car, he started waving his arms, desperate to grab the officer's attention and convey the urgency of the situation. Once he had the officer's attention, Dalton wasted no time. He began leading the way towards the boulder, his pace quick but cautious. "There it is," he said, not daring to move any closer. The officer nodded, acknowledging Dalton's caution, and moved forward to inspect the threat. The officer's sudden rapid return towards Dalton, after only a brief inspection, signaled immediate danger. He began speaking into his radio, calling for backup, his voice tense and concerned. The swift change in the officer's demeanor confirmed Dalton's worst fears about the danger they faced. Dalton felt a mix of vindication and horror, knowing his discovery was as serious as he had feared. Within minutes, the scene transformed as various authorities arrived in quick succession. The rapid convergence of local police, federal agents, and emergency responders on the site was a testament to the severity of the situation. Dalton watched, struck by the swift mobilization, as vehicles and personnel flooded the area, ready to tackle the unseen threat efficiently and with practiced precision. The newly arrived teams cordoned off the area around the boulder. Yellow tape stretched across the landscape, creating a tangible barrier between the danger and the GROW-GR crowd. Dalton found himself the center of attention as an officer pulled him aside for a debrief. He recounted his discovery, emphasizing the urgency with which he had called for help. The officer took diligent notes, acknowledging Dalton's crucial role in alerting them to the potential danger, a moment that underscored the significance of his actions. As word spread, a crowd of onlookers and media personnel began to gather at the outskirts of the cordoned area. Cameras flashed and reporters jotted down notes, turning the sight into a spectacle. Dalton watched the scene unfold, the gravity of his discovery now amplified by the public and media attention it attracted. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the highlands, the investigation around the boulder pressed on. The fading light brought an eerie atmosphere to the scene, amplifying the sense of uncertainty that hung in the air. Rumors and speculations began to weave through the crowd, growing more elaborate with each retelling. What's really happening? How dangerous is it? The questions multiplied, fed by imagination and fear, as people speculated on the nature of the threat that had brought such a response. Dalton heard snippets of conversation, each theory more outlandish than the last, highlighting the human penchant for storytelling in times of crisis. As hours passed, the tension among the authorities and onlookers only seemed to build. The lack of immediate answers, the continuous work of the investigators, and the growing darkness all contributed to a mounting sense of suspense. Dalton, like everyone else, was caught in the grip of a prolonged wait, the resolution of the situation as yet unknown and deeply felt. As dusk settled, a hush fell over the crowd. An official, clearly marked by his uniform and authoritative presence, stepped forward to address the gathering. The official's voice cut through the silence, announcing the discovery of an unexploded ordnance buried near the boulder. The details were sparse but sufficient to convey the gravity of the situation. This was not just any relic, it was a dormant but deadly remnant from the past, a threat that had lingered unseen till Dalton's fateful discovery. A collective gasp swept through the crowd at the announcement, followed by a palpable sense of relief. The danger had been identified and could now be addressed. The initial shock of realizing how close they had come to disaster quickly turned to gratitude. The reality of the averted danger brought a new appreciation for the safety they momentarily took for granted. Acknowledgement of Dalton's role in preventing a potential catastrophe, Rofi became the focal point of the official's brief. His discovery, prompted by curiosity and pursued through diligence, had inadvertently saved lives. The crowd's reaction shifted from relief to admiration, recognizing the significance of what Dalton had done, transforming him from an ordinary citizen into a local hero. As the official concluded his announcement, the crowd lingered, processing the near miss. Conversations ignited around the risks hidden in plain sight, in the thin line between normalcy and disaster.